So Daniel Green, you're going to have the affirmative. So you're going to go first with your opening statement. And let me check what your format's going to be. Oh, you guys did want to change your formats up a little bit. So yeah, you're going to get a 5-minute opener. Then there's going to be 2 rounds of cross-examination, but there's also going to be like 1 round of like rebuttals. You both can rebuttal to like each other's like opening statements, then 2 rounds of cross-examinations, then closers. Are you guys okay with that? We can make the rebuttals a cross-examination if you want to.
Yeah, it works for me.
I was under the impression that it was going to be 5-minute openers, 3 5-minute cross-examinations, and then a 5-minute closer. But I don't mind being flexible. It's fine with me.
Actually, let's do that instead. I'm now noticing the rebuttal on the page, so I could have done a better job communicating. So let's do like 3 rounds of cross-examination instead. That's what you guys are probably prepared for. So we'll do that instead.
Only if Jason's cool with that too. That's all right.
Man, I'm good with either way.
You sure is that?
What you guys want to do?
Okay. So we're gonna start with Daniel Green's 5-minute opener. And you can start anytime. I'll start your time when you say the first word.
Wonderful, thank you. First, I must extend my thanks to the hosts for organizing, promoting, and moderating tonight's event, and to Jason for agreeing to participate. In a few senses, the conversation that's about to take place has been some time in the making, and it really is a treat to finally be having it. It's my genuine pleasure to be arguing for the affirmative in tonight's debate. Namely that atheism is indeed rational. My only request of the audience is that they listen closely and be as honest with themselves as they can in weighing up the quality of the arguments presented by both sides. Win or lose, my ultimate goal is that everyone involved will come out the other side of this experience with a clearer sense of how rational they think anyone's belief or lack of belief in the existence of a theistic deity really is. Let's be clear. Tonight's debate is not a debate regarding whether or not it is rational to experience belief in Yahweh or Jesus of Nazareth, as described in the Old and New Testaments of the Christian Bible and ancient West Asian mythology. This is not a debate about the existence of any specific theistic deity, but a debate regarding how rational it may be to find oneself unconvinced of the existence of any theistic deity that any religion may have already described, or that anyone may be able to think up. Let's also be clear about what theism and its direct counterposition, atheism, actually are. Theism, as distinct from polytheism, deism, pantheism, panentheism, or any other belief system that someone may have found themselves convinced of, is the belief in a particular kind of deity. Theism is, explicitly, the belief in the existence of a creator deity who continues to interact with its creation. This is a very specific kind of belief, and it's far from the only one for which any kind of argument can be formulated. Atheism is simply the absence of this kind of belief, the prefix "a" simply being a Latin placeholder for the word without. Atheists are very simply without the belief in a theistic deity. I presume Jason knows what it's like to experience what we might call adeism, apolytheism, apantheism, or apanentheism, so perhaps this is some common ground that we can share. I feel that what constitutes rationality is also worth touching on here. Hopefully we can all accept that rationality is the quality of being based on, guided by, or in alignment with reason and logic. At best, our own rationales favour sound reasoning, not just arguments that are valid in structure, and those which are also supported by a coherent body of evidence, and avoid unwieldy presuppositions. Otherwise, we are holding our beliefs to a standard of evidence that other contradictory beliefs can also meet relatively easily. Hence the abundance of conflicting, superstitious, paranormal, and religious belief systems accepted around the world, both at present and throughout history. Lastly, a quick experiment. I ask that the audience observes the palm of my hand. given what you know of it, do you believe there is a big black dot in the middle of my hand, or not? Perhaps we could label ourselves dotists, those who experience a presence of belief in the dot, or adotists, those who experience an absence of belief in the existence of the dot. Maybe we could even get some audience participation going. One's in the chat if you consider yourself a dotist. Two's in the chat if you consider yourself an adotist. Personally, I can't find it in myself to think of someone as irrational for experiencing a lack of belief in the dot, as I can't think of any evidence that you might have detected in any way that would suggest its existence. Nor can I think of a sound argument that you could make in favor of it being undoubtedly real. Either way, I hope that as an atheist myself, I can demonstrate that I'm not as insane as Jason may feel that I am, and that the audience will at least not regret having tuned in for the next 45 minutes. With that, thank you so much.
Okay, with that, you had 12 seconds left on the clock. Thank you for your opening statement. Now it's going to be a 5-minute opener for Jason, and it starts when you say your first word.
All right, great. Thank you, Coco. Appreciate you, Daniel. I'm thankful for the opportunity to come on here and just to have a fruitful conversation. So thank you again to both Daniel and Coco. Let me first start by saying, even though Daniel and I disagree, I don't think he's insane. I have no hard feelings. I love Daniel. I want nothing but the best for him in his life. That's why I'm doing this debate ultimately, because I love people and I love Daniel. So let's just get to the crux of the debate. Daniel just laid out his opening statement. I want to point out that he did nothing to demonstrate that the denial of God's existence is rational. He mentioned a little bit about the theist God. He put some dot on his hand. Daniel is tasked with, first of all, demonstrating and proving that the denial of any God in all gods is rational. Now, Daniel and most atheists, in order to deflect, love to use the definition for atheism as it's just simply a lack of belief. I prefer to use an academic definition of atheism. So let's define atheism, then we'll define what it means to be rational. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, atheism is standardly used to refer to the proposition that God does not exist, or more broadly, that the proposition that there are no gods. This metaphysical sense of the word is preferred over other senses, including the psychological sense, not just by theistic philosophers, but by many, though not all, atheists in philosophy as well. For example, Robert Lee Poitevin writes, "An atheist is one who denies the existence of a personal, transcendent creator of the universe, rather than one who simply lives his life without reference to such being." J.J. Schellenberger says that in philosophy, the atheist is not just someone who doesn't accept theism, but more strongly someone who opposes it. In other words, it is the denial of theism, the claim that there is no God. This definition is also found in multiple encyclopedias and dictionaries of philosophy. For example, in the concise Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, William L. Rowe writes, he's an atheist, "Atheism is the position that affirms that the non-existence of God. It proposes positive disbelief rather than mere suspension of belief." The Cambridge Dictionary of Philosophy recognizes multiple senses of the word atheism, but it is clear about which is standard in philosophy. What I want the audience to do tonight, I want you to keep in mind that tonight's debate is not about agnosticism being rational. The debate isn't about a neutral position of claiming just a lack of a belief in God is rational. Daniel's task is to prove that denying God's existence is rational. My interlocutor tonight has the burden to prove and demonstrate that denying the existence of any and all gods is in fact rational. He won't be able to do it. What does it mean to be rational? It involves making decisions based on facts, evidence, and careful consideration of consequences and logic. All right? It is not logically impossible for God to exist. Therefore, the denial of God's existence would not be a logical conclusion. Being rational also means being free from excessive emotions. While emotions are a natural part of human experience, rationality aims to minimize their influence on decision making. Atheism is rooted in excessive emotions such as pride, frustration, disappointment, bitterness, and the such that often leads to irrational behaviors and irrational beliefs. Being rational means that you're seeking truth and objectivity. Rational individuals strive to understand the world as it is, free from personal bias and subjective interpretations. In an atheistic worldview, almost everything is considered subjective or a subjective interpretation of reality. Subjectivism is a core conclusion of atheism. And I'm wrapping up. Atheism is the denial of any and all God's existence, and no atheist can prove that no God exists, which means that this is not a factual position supported by any evidence, but rather it is one based on excessive emotions, subjectivity. Therefore, we must conclude that atheism is irrational. Let me make it clear to the audience, we're not here to debate that denying any one particular God is rational or that agnosticism is rational. My challenge to Daniel is to provide evidentiary
Finish
proof.
the last sentence.
Sure, yes. My challenge to Daniel is to provide evidentiary proof that denying the existence of a maximally great creator being is rational and prove the positive assertion that no God exists is rational. If he can't do so, he must concede the debate and acknowledge atheism is irrational.
Okay, we'll stop it there. With that, that's both of the opening statements. We're going to go into 3 rounds of cross-examination. Daniel, you're going first. You get 5 minutes, and it starts when you say your first word.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It seems that we both prefer different definitions of various terms, which is fine with me. Perhaps during my cross-examinations, we'll adhere to the definition that I've provided, and when it comes to yours, we can work with yours, Jason. Maybe you don't mind that. Also, in all honesty, I don't mind if my cross-examination times become conversational rather than strictly interrogative. But I will reclaim my time if I feel like you're straying from the point, if you're cool with that. When you were younger, did you believe that Santa Claus existed?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Why did I believe that?
Yeah.
It's because what my mom told me.
Your parents told you that it was true?
Well, my mom.
Okay.
I don't have a father, but my mother and others.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think that losing your belief in Santa, or presuming you don't believe in Santa anymore, correct me if I'm wrong?
No, I don't believe in. I know that Santa Claus is not a real in the physical sense.
Okay. Do you think that losing your belief in Santa was something that you had control over? Or do you think that it happened as a result of your previously held beliefs being placed with something that seemed more coherent or more well-informed as you continued to grow and learn new things?
Yeah, I believe we're in control of what we choose to believe.
Oh, okay. So you think that you chose to stop believing in Santa. It wasn't something that happened to you independent of your reasoning.
Yeah, if you can't choose what you believe or not believe, there is no such thing as reasoning.
Interesting. Okay. Do you believe that it's rational for someone, for their beliefs to shift over time if their experiences lead them to do so?
It depends on what their conclusion is, if it's based on rationale or not.
Okay, got it. I've heard you give a definition of what you think evidence is before. Could you give the definition that you like?
Sure. The legal definition of evidence is any item or information that would be offered or presented that would make a claim either more or less probable.
Okay, got it. So by that definition, do you believe that there is evidence for the existence of Santa?
Do I believe that there's evidence for the existence of Santa?
Right,
yes.
By that definition.
There's evidence.
Yeah, right. But it's not evidence that's compelling to you, is it?
No.
Right. Okay. So if someone, most likely a child, were to tell you that you were being irrational for lacking any belief in Santa's existence, how would you respond?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Given that you accept that there is evidence for Santa existing, and I agree with you, given that you accept that there is evidence of Santa's existence, if someone came to you, probably a child, and told you that you were being irrational for lacking any belief in Santa's existence, how would you respond to that?
Sure. Well, you're asking me to respond as if I'm a child. A child is
No.
you just said
As yourself.
as a child. Wasn't the hypothetical that you gave me?
No. If someone, like probably a child, it would probably be a child who said this to you, right?
Yeah.
If a child who believes in Santa said to you that you were being irrational for lacking belief in Santa, how would you respond to that?
Well, I wouldn't be having this discussion with the child, so it's a nonsense. It's a silly hypothetical because I wouldn't be able to have a rational, logical conversation with the child.
I feel like that's a dodge of the hypothetical.
It's not a dodge. I know what you're trying. You want me to say? I mean, how am I going to argue with a child over whether something is rational or not when they really don't even have the ability to comprehend what rational is? It's just
Okay, we can change the hypothetical. We can say that it's an adult. We can say an adult who still believes in Santa, given the evidence that they've seen, right? The letters from Santa that they've gotten, the bite that they've seen taken out of the cookie, the milk that's missing from the glass that they left out, the Santa that they saw at the mall, the fact that all their friends get presents from Santa too. This adult still believes in Santa.
We have to end it.
That's sure thing. No worries.
Sorry about that, but the 5 minute ran out for your cross-examination. So Jason, now it's yours to end the first round of cross-examination. So it starts whenever you say your first word.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to stick to mostly yes or no questions just for the sake of time. If Daniel, you feel like you need to expound upon something or clarify something, I would ask that you do so on your time. First question I have for you, is it logically impossible for God, a God creator, to exist?
I think it depends on what one means by God.
I just said a God creator. Is it logically impossible for God to exist?
Again, it depends. There are many different conceptions of what a God is. If we're talking about a theistic deity,
God is the uncaused cause, the creator.
an uncaused cause seems illogical to me.
Maximally great being. I didn't ask you what you think. I'm asking you, is it considered logically impossible for a God creator to exist? Yes or no?
Some kind of creator entity, logically?
You're just dodging. Are you going to answer the question? It's yes or no. Is it logically impossible for a God creator to exist?
I did just say it's possible, yes.
It's logically possible, correct?
Possible, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Do you understand that in philosophy, if something is logically possible, if something is not logically impossible, it is logically necessary? My next question for you is, can anyone be certain that God doesn't exist?
I don't believe so. I don't claim to be certain.
You can't be certain that God doesn't exist. So is it rational to deny the existence of something that is, first of all, logically possible and that we can't be certain doesn't exist?
To be clear, you're using the word God in an unclear way. We're talking about the existence of a theistic deity.
An uncaused cause, a creator, a maximally great being. Is it rational to deny the existence of something that is logically possible and that we can't be certain doesn't exist? You just said a second ago that nobody can be certain that God doesn't exist. I don't care what definition of God you're using. Again, we're not here to debate against the Christian God or any one particular God. We're talking about a maximally great being, a creator. Is it rational to deny the existence of something that you can't be certain doesn't exist?
I think it's rational to lack the belief. Yeah, if you've not been convinced.
I asked you, Daniel. I asked you, is it rational to deny the existence of something you just admitted you can't be certain doesn't exist?
I think it's rational to lack the belief. I don't think it would be rational to claim
I think
certainty
the
of it
audience,
not
if they're
existing.
being honest, they know he's dodging the question. It is irrational to
there's no
deny the
dodge.
existence of something that you're not certain of, and to deny the existence of something that is logically possible. That literally would be irrational, because it's not based on logic, it's not based on facts or evidence. By definition, that is irrational. Is it rational to deny any and all God's existence? If it is rational, Daniel, to deny the existence of any and all God's existence, why don't you just make the positive assertion that God doesn't exist?
Because I don't think that it is possible for us to know that these entities don't exist. I think that the existence of these entities is beyond our ability to ascertain certainty of.
Okay, great. So I appreciate the honesty. So that means that you can't rationally deny the existence of God, correct?
I can, but I can't claim certainty of it not existing.
How can it be rational if you can't claim certainty? How can you say God doesn't exist and it be rational when it's logically possible and you can't be certain that God doesn't exist? How is that rational?
We're talking about degrees of likelihood here, based on evidence that we have
Ask about
observed.
certainty. So I'll move on. On your live on 522, you stated we don't get to choose what we think is true. You alluded to it just a minute ago. Do you recall making this assertion?
Yes, I do. That's what I believe.
Okay, are you forced to think that this is a true statement by the chemical reactions in your brain? And if so, are you certain that your brain is computing truth?
No, I'm not certain that my brain is correct about everything. No, but I do believe that position I have arrived at as a result of the experiences that my nervous system has been on the receiving end of, cumulatively. Yes.
So you don't have any control over what you think is true.
No conscious control, not full conscious control. No.
So how do you know that way? How do you know that what you're thinking about atheism and theism being rational or irrational? By the way, how do chemicals that you have no control over, how do chemicals make rational or irrational conclusions?
I don't believe that chemicals do that. I believe that nervous systems can learn to do that.
Okay, how do nervous systems make rational or irrational decisions when they don't have a mind and they're not sentient?
Sure. So they can learn to make decisions that are either more or less informed by what we would consider to be sound logic.
Do you need a mind to
So
be
if
able to learn anything, Daniel?
Pardon?
Do you need a mind to be able to learn anything?
Okay, we'll stop it right there.
Yes or no?
Do we want Daniel to answer that question?
I'm happy to answer.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll give him it. Yeah. You need a mind to learn.
I think it depends on what you mean by learn. I think you could teach like an AI certain things, but I think that learning in the sense that you're probably referring to, I'd say we probably need a mind of some kind. I think minds are contingent upon brains.
Okay, we'll stop it right there and go into second round of cross-examination. Daniel, you get 5 minutes and it starts when you say your first word.
Cool. Well, people in religious communities that aren't necessarily theistic in nature can provide evidence like ancient sacred scriptures, prophecies, revelations, miracles being performed in front of their own eyes, prayers being answered, personal testimonies of their own lives changing upon conversion, feelings of being touched or overcome by various gods and entities, etc. Arguments that can be made logically in support of these deities existing. Do you think that people in other religious communities, other than your own, are irrational to hold their beliefs when they feel they have evidence of the same nature that you feel you have for yours?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and answer this question, but I do have to point out again that Daniel, you're not arguing that the debate, what you're asking me is a non sequitur. You're asking about other faiths when your obligation is to demonstrate and prove that denying any and all gods is rational.
I'll just, to be really clear, this is
to be more specific, the actual debate title.
I'll just reclaim my time there, Jason. Just to be really clear, this is not about the truth of other belief systems. This is about whether or not it's rational for these people to believe something, given that they have the same standard of evidence that you're saying you have in favor of your
I would say it's
system.
rational for other people to believe in a God. Yes, even if I don't agree with them in the God that they're describing, I believe it is rational for an individual to come to the conclusion that there is a creator God. And pretty much anybody, all of these other faiths, Muslim, Islam, whatever that you're referring to, believe in a creator God. So I would say that's rational to believe that, yes.
Do you understand the difference between a deistic God and a theistic God?
Yes, I do. A deistic God is a higher power, a creator that is not involved within its creation.
So you believe that it's possible, like arguably even logically possible, that a deistic God exists, yes?
No, I don't think that is, because in order for us to even know that God exists, it has to be revealed to us. If God didn't want us to know that he existed, we would have no way of knowing he existed. So to claim that God is a deist God, you would have no way to know that that God even existed. So I would say that's irrational.
I don't think that that makes sense, given that this deity could create a world within which there is plenty of evidence of its own existence.
You wouldn't know that.
It simply doesn't exist. It doesn't interact with this world anymore. But anyway, given that it is possible that a deistic God could exist,
I didn't say that.
would it be rational to reject the possibility of that?
Yeah, it would be.
That theism is the only possibility.
Yeah, it would be. I'm not sure of your question, but I would say it's irrational to conclude that that a God is a deist God, because the only way that you would know again that God exists is if he revealed himself to you. It would have to be a personal God. Therefore, he couldn't be a deist God. You wouldn't know a deist God existed. So that would be irrational to conclude that.
But you could believe that one existed, couldn't you?
You can believe in whatever you want. You can believe that unicorns are a God. That doesn't make it rational or true.
Yeah, I agree with you. Do you believe that hallucination is a real psychological phenomenon?
Yes.
Okay. Given that we know of many ways in which hallucination can be triggered, do you think that it's understandable that atheists don't find anecdotal experiences of a theist seeing, hearing, or feeling their deity to be compelling evidence of their deity being real?
No, I don't think that's a rational conclusion.
Interesting. Okay. Why not?
Because in order for that to be a rational conclusion, you would have to have absolute certainty that the individual, that what they experienced was hallucination. If you don't have absolute certainty about that, or the person is just a normal, there's no reason for you to believe that they're hallucinating, that would be an irrational conclusion. But you can't be certain about anything anyway in your worldview, so it's irrational for you to really claim certainty of anything, Daniel, by your own admission.
No, that's not true of my position. But to be really clear, I'm not asking whether or not it's rational to claim certainty of these people's deities not existing. I'm asking you, do you think that it's rational for someone to not be convinced that they definitely exist?
No, I don't think it's rational just based on that, no.
Okay. So even though we have a rational possible explanation for why someone might think they've seen or heard or felt a deity, you still think that it would be more rational to lean into the less rational explanation being the certainly true one?
Okay, we have to cut the time there, but Jason, you can answer, and then we'll move on to our cross-examination.
So when you assert that the position of hallucinations is either more probable or less probable, or I forget the term that you used, that's a subjective opinion. It's not rational to conclude anything when you don't have certainty. It's irrational to say anything. Just because you have theories or probabilities doesn't mean that that's a rational conclusion.
Okay, and then we'll cut it there. Jason, it's going to be your turn to end the second round of cross-examination. Your time will start whenever you say your first word.
Awesome. Daniel, is it true that you once believed in God?
Yes, it is. I used to be a theist. Yes.
Great. I heard you say that you stopped believing in God after you studied the evidence and obtained more information, essentially. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. That's part of what led to that lack of belief over time.
Gotcha. So earlier you stated that we don't have any control over what we determine to be true, or that you said basically we're not choosing what we believe or not believe. So based on that premise, and based on that, you said that you stopped believing in God after you studied the evidence and obtained more information. Did you choose the information to study and research, or did the chemicals or the nervous system in your, as you like to call it, did the nervous system in your brain choose what to study or to research?
I don't think the chemicals chose. No, I think that my brain chose much of it. Some of it came up randomly because it's just what popped up next on my feed on like Facebook or TikTok or whatever.
So your nervous system chose what information you were going to study out and research. Your nervous system did that. You didn't play any part in that. It's all involuntary.
I believe that I am my nervous system. So to be really clear, I said that I did choose some of that, and some of it popped up randomly on my feed in accordance with what my algorithms were determining I was taking interest in, right? But much of it I did choose to pursue.
Who? You said you are your nervous system. How does a nervous system choose anything? Again, a nervous system doesn't have a mind. It doesn't have self-awareness. It's not sentient. How does a nervous system choose anything?
Well, our central nervous system is sentient. We know that sentience is contingent upon a central nervous system being fed sensory data from the external world. So that's not accurate to say.
That's not a scientific explanation. But anyway, we'll move on for that. I don't want to
It's an explicitly scientific explanation.
Okay, there's no scientist or peer-reviewed article that says a central nervous system has sentience. No central nervous system has self-awareness and knows that it exists. It doesn't have a mind.
That's entirely false.
Anyway, let's move on from there. You stated that you stopped believing in God because you came to the conclusion the evidence isn't reliable or sufficient for God's existence. Is it your position that this nervous system in your brain, that there isn't any sufficient evidence? Is it the nervous system that came to this conclusion in your brain that there isn't sufficient evidence for any and all gods?
My brain currently lacks the belief in any form of deity, as I don't see reason to conclude that there must be one, given what I've studied. Yes.
All right, okay. So I guess I'm debating, for all the audience here tonight, I'm simply debating a nervous system. I'm not debating Daniel. There is no Daniel. There is no him. I'm simply just debating a central nervous system. It's one nervous system debating another, which we have no control over than what we think, what we say, what we believe to be true. All right.
These are all straw men.
That sounds pretty rational. Those are your words. How did you decide the evidence?
These are not my words.
How did you decide the evidence isn't convincing or reliable without making any sort of choices?
I did make choices. I don't believe that we have full conscious control over what our choices end up being. Choice and free will are not the same thing.
Last question in this round. On your live on 522, you said that people used to think seizures were demonic attacks because they lacked information, correct?
Yes, people still believe that to this day. Okay. Yes.
You also stated that it was irrational. It was an irrational belief by those people, correct?
It's understandable to me that they would jump to that conclusion, but I don't. I
didn't say it was understandable. I understand why some people are atheists, but it doesn't mean it's rational. You said specifically that it was an irrational belief that they thought seizures were demonic attacks, and it was based on lack of information, correct?
I think you could argue that it is irrational for people to jump to that conclusion, yes.
So what you're saying is having a lack of information, a lack of evidence and a lack of information led to irrational beliefs. Ironically, the number one reason that atheists give and agnostics give for denying the existence of God or saying they lack a belief in God is due to a lack of evidence, a lack of information. You yourself have asserted that already on here. Essentially, you deny God due to a lack of information. Based on your logic, if you're going to be consistent, Daniel, you would have to conclude that atheism is irrational since it's based on a lack of information, admittedly by atheists and agnostics themselves. And I'll yield my time.
I don't need to do that because I'm not claiming certainty of there being no deity of any kind or deities.
Well, then you concede the debate. It's over.
Okay, we're gonna stop the time there. That's gonna end Jason's cross-examination. Daniel, it's gonna be your cross-examination to start the third round of cross-examination, which is the final one before closers. Your time will start whenever you say your first word.
Wonderful, thank you. Regarding our earlier experiments, would you call yourself a dotist or an a-dotist?
I don't know what a dotist means. You're talking about a dot on your hand?
Yeah. Are you a dotist, one who believes that there is a dot in the middle of my hand, a big black dot? Or are you an a-dotist, so someone who lacks the belief in that dot?
Atheism means without God. So yeah, I would say without dots. Yeah.
So you're an adotist. Okay. Why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
Because there's no rational justification or explanation for it.
What makes you say that?
There's no evidence.
There's no evidence? Okay, interesting. I am a dotist myself. I believe that there is one. Do you believe that I'm being irrational when I say that?
Yeah.
Why?
You're being irrational.
Why am I being irrational if I'm being if I tell you that I'm a dotist?
Yeah. It's logically possible, so I wouldn't say absolutely there's no dot on your hand.
Okay, interesting. If someone told you that they believed in the dot, would you consider that to be good evidence of there being a dot?
Of them just saying that? No.
Okay. Do you think that it would be rational of you to lack the belief in the dot despite this other person's belief in the dot?
Only if I had done sufficient study, research, and my conclusion is not based on feelings or emotion, and it's based on whether or not it's logically possible or not. I would use the same criteria that I used for everything else before I concluded whether that was a rational position to take or not.
Okay, sure. If someone told you that they could see the dot, even though you couldn't, would that turn you into a dotist?
No.
Why not?
Because that claim, one claim alone, wouldn't be sufficient.
Okay. So even if it were true that they could see it, just one claim alone is not good enough?
Mm-mm.
Okay, all right. Why would one person wholeheartedly believing they can see something not be convincing to you that it exists?
Because if you're trying to make the analogy, what you're trying to do is compare this dot on your hand to God, because there is no just one piece of evidence that we would say demonstrates the proof of God's existence. By the way, in order to prove anything, and I don't want to get into the tag argument, so I'll just leave that alone. Anyway, I would never assert that God just exists just because I say He exists.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking that. I'm using this as an analogy for belief in anything, not just a God. So if someone says that they can see the dot, but you can't, you don't consider that other person being convinced that they can see, they're literally experiencing it. As far as they're concerned, there is a dot that they are looking at. Their experience, their sensory experience of seeing the dot would not hold up for you. Why?
Not if that's the only evidence, no. It would require more than that.
It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that sometimes people see things or sense things that aren't provable outside of their own mind?
Say that again?
Let's try this. Have you ever had a dream that you were convinced in the moment was real?
That I dreamed that was real?
Have you ever had a dream that while you were in it, you believed it was reality? You didn't realize that you were dreaming?
No.
You've never had a dream like that? Oh, okay.
No, I don't recall. I mean, I have dreams. I know dreams are real. I dream all the time. I'm a vivid dreamer. But are you asking me, I mean, do I recall sitting and thinking in the middle of my dream, hey, this dream is real, like I'm really doing this stuff? No, I don't recall having that kind of a dream, no. I mean, it might be possible when you're dreaming. Who knows? I don't remember all my dreams.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you think that
Right.
it's understandable for people to, when dreaming, not realize that they're dreaming sometimes and think that they're in reality?
Do I think it's understandable? I think lots of things are understandable. Does that make it rational? Rational? No. That's what we're arguing. We're not arguing is denying the existence of God understandable. We're arguing whether or not the denial of God's existence is rational.
I know, but I'm just trying to feel out exactly what you accept as being, rational grounds for belief.
We do have to cut it there. So that will end Daniel's cross-examination. So Jason, we're going to do your cross-examination to end the third round and then move on to closing statements. So it'll start whenever you say your first word.
All right, cool. since your belief is that we don't choose what we think is true and that our minds are just the byproduct of our brains, which you say is controlled by input information, basically, how does subjectivity actually exist in the atheistic worldview?
We're not entirely sure. Okay. I think this is largely the hard problem of consciousness. We're still investigating this phenomenon. We don't know exactly why central nervous systems generate first-person subjective experiences. This is what neurologists and psychologists around the globe are fascinated by.
Right.
To jump to the conclusion that they're powered by souls or something would be like a soul of the gaps argument.
You gave a sufficient answer. For the sake of time, I don't need you to elaborate on it. You gave me your answer. You said we don't really know. Is there an objective reason that anything exists?
I'm convinced personally that reality exists.
That's not what I asked you. I said, is there an objective reason why anything exists?
Oh, sure. I think so.
Okay, what is the objective reason that we exist?
Sure.
Wait, you're not sure?
No, I don't know exactly what caused everything to
Is there any intentionality to existence?
I think intentionality kind of implies a mind that has intentions, and I don't perceive there to be some gigantic mind out there in the universe or outside of the universe that intended for it.
So you don't think there's any intentionality to our existence, correct?
I think that we experience having intentions, but I don't think that the universe or reality itself has an intention.
Gotcha.
I don't think that it's conscious.
Okay, so great. So there's no intentionality to existence. Do you live your life without any intentionality, as though it's meaningless?
No, because I am a subject.
So there's no intentionality to so you're living contrary to your worldview. You say there's no intentionality to existence, but you live life with intentionality, as though your life is meaningless. Would it be rational if I spent hours? Would it be rational if I spent hours, weeks, and months trying to disprove that Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy are real or necessary?
I mean, I'd be interested to hear why you might do that. If you're trying to make an analogy between someone like myself who spends a lot of time having conversations with people about whether or not their belief in God is
would it be rational if I knew that?
Then I can give you the reasons why I do that.
I don't need the reasons why. I'm just asking you. It's really a yes or no question. Would it be rational for me to spend hours, weeks, months, and of my time, energy, and effort trying to disprove something that I am absolutely certain doesn't exist? Is that rational behavior, in your opinion?
Depends on the goal of the conversations that you're having. Yeah, if what your goal is to help people learn about epistemology, if your goal is to help people think more critically,
do you think it is rational?
I think that's a great goal to have.
Okay, great. Would it be rational for me to assert that unicorns are evil?
Personally, I'm not convinced that unicorns exist.
Right.
So I don't see good reasons.
Yet there's all these atheists that spend hours and weeks and days doing lives and all this stuff saying God is evil, yet you're not convinced that God even exists. How can something that doesn't even exist be evil? We'll move on. Can
a question? Do you want me to answer the question?
Your turn to question me. It's my turn to question you.
There was a question though. I'd love to answer it.
I didn't ask you. No, you answered my question sufficiently.
I didn't.
Daniel, so when you
said let's move on, I didn't answer the question at all.
When you use the pronouns I, me, myself, are you just simply referring to nothing more than a central nervous system?
No, I'm referring to my mind, fundamentally, but then also pragmatically, I'm also referring to my body.
Okay, are you your body or are you your nervous system? Earlier, you said you were your nervous system. Have you now changed your position on that?
I think fundamentally, I am my mind, but my mind is contingent upon my nervous system.
Do you have any control over
my central nervous system? Pardon?
Do you have any control over your nervous system and what it tells you?
We have some conscious control over our nervous system. We can engage in biofeedback practices, which influence the way that our nervous systems respond and process information, but we don't have conscious control over the vast majority of our nervous system's processing.
Okay. If you are your nervous system and you don't get to decide or choose what you think is true, it's all determined by this nervous system that you keep referring to. How can you have control over this if every thought that you have is a different byproduct of the nervous system? Yeah.
Okay, answer that question, and then there'll be.
It's fine. It'll take too long to answer it. I can see. Go ahead. I'm done with my questions.
Okay, we want to end it there.
Yeah, I don't want to end it. Yep.
Okay.
Moving to the closing.
So now we're moving into closing statements. Daniel, you're going to get 5 minutes. So it starts whenever you say your first word.
Sure. Again, atheism is not necessarily the claim that there is no God, nor that the existence of a God is not possible. It is the absence of a belief in a specific kind of deity. I don't claim to know that there is no God. I'm just being honest with you when I say that I'm not convinced that one must exist. To be clear, I don't believe that those who hold to theism are unintelligent, crazy, or even necessarily irrational, depending on what you understand rational thought to be. I don't believe that I was any of these things when I was still a theist. But I have come to believe that I was jumping to a conclusion as a result of not having examined my reasons for believing closely enough. I couldn't see that there were inconsistencies in my rationale. I had not yet learned how any other alternative positions could be considered possible, more likely even. And all that meant was that I was more ignorant than I am now. I still consider myself to be ignorant. In fact, I consider us all to be ignorant, just to varying degrees. Given that ignorance is simply the state of being uneducated, unaware, or uninformed of something. We are all ignorant of just how much there is that we don't know. And admitting that to oneself is not irrational. It is honesty. Imagine yourself attending a horse race and being asked by your friends to place a bet on one of two horses. Peering down at the starting gates, from what you can see, the first horse looks healthy and strong and is waiting calmly behind barrier number 1. Looking over at where the second horse should be, you see a distinct lack of horse behind barrier 2. You cannot see anything at all in that stall, not even a jockey. You look at your friend in confusion. What do you mean, pick one of the horses? You say. I can only see one. What do you mean? Asks your friend. It's right there. How do you not see it? It's magnificent. Number 2 is a sure thing, don't you think? No, I can't honestly say that I do think that, you respond. You explain that you can't see good reason to place any bet on something that you can't really say that you think is real. At this, they scoff at you, call you irrational, and hurry off to place their bet on horse number 2, while you stand there in disbelief. A disbelief that you cannot help, mind you. Could one be forgiven for not placing their bets on a horse they are not convinced is real? Is it irrational of someone to do that? Regarding the questions that Jason believes theism answers, given the existence of possibilities, not necessarily realities, but possibilities other than theism being true, for example, deism, pantheism, panentheism, polytheism, can you honestly find it in yourself to find an atheist to be irrational? Again, thank you to the hosts, Jason, and the audience for all making this event possible. And I'd love to extend the invitation to Jason to join one of my live streams anytime so we can continue the conversation in whatever direction he might like to take it. No muting, nothing. I'd like to leave a few questions for the audience's consideration, especially those who currently feel convinced of the existence of a theistic deity. Can any theists in the audience understand someone lacking the belief in a theistic deity? Does it honestly seem entirely irrational to lack the belief in one very specific form of deity as an explanation for anything and everything? Regarding dotism, I do consider myself a dotist. I believe in the dot because I believe there is sufficient reason to do so. In fact, I think I can give you reason to believe right now too. Upon observing my hand now, do you believe differently than you did before? Are you now experiencing a belief in the dot that you were not experiencing before? If so, I can understand that. I wouldn't consider you to have been irrational before for not believing what I did, though. You simply lacked compelling reason to believe, and that seems pretty understandable to me. With that, again, thank you so much, and I'll concede my time.
Okay. You had 20 seconds left on the clock. Thank you for your candor. Jason, it's now your turn for your 5-minute closer. I will start it whenever you say your first word.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Coco, again. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed the conversation back and forth. I'll accept your invitation, Daniel, to join one of your lives. What Daniel did here is he defended agnosticism. I never made the assertion that it's irrational to say you don't know or you're not sure if God exists. That wasn't the topic for the debate. He wants to use a different form of or definition of atheism. I go by scholastic definitions, the philosophical definition of atheism. What I was asking him to prove was rational, was the denial of God's existence. The definition of agnosticism is the when you basically are holding to that you cannot know whether God exists or not. Obviously, I wouldn't consider that to be irrational, saying you don't know. There's lots of things I don't know. I have lots of questions as well. That's not what we were supposed to be debating. I knew he would do that. He did not show that it was rational to deny the existence of any and all gods. He just simply did not. He did not. He actually conceded the debate at one point, in a sense, when I asked him, is it logically impossible for God to exist? He said no. Okay. Then I asked him, are you certain that God doesn't exist? He said no. It cannot be rational for an individual that claims that God doesn't exist. That's what atheism is, the denial of any or all gods, if it is not logically impossible and you're not certain of it. That is literally the definition of irrational conclusions. According to Daniel and his worldview, we are nothing more than central nervous systems. Therefore, we cannot be rational nor irrational, especially when we don't have any control over these nervous systems or what we even think to believe is true or real. Makes no sense. That's irrational. Atheism is irrational ultimately because it's denying the existence of any and all gods. Atheism isn't based on facts or evidence, but rather it's based on your emotions. And according to their own worldview, it's just some nervous system, some brain chemicals that are not being convinced of God's existence and deciding to deny the evidence for the existence of God. In atheism, ultimately nothing is really rational or irrational. As my opponent claims, we cannot choose what we think is true or not. The logical conclusion would then be that we don't choose what is or is not rational. Coming to the conclusion, Daniel, that no gods exist in spite of God's existence not being logically impossible, which entails God's existence is logically necessary, is irrational. Since no one is able to be certain or able to prove that God doesn't exist, yet believes God or no gods exist definitively, fits the definition of irrational. I'll leave you with this, a few self-reflecting questions, okay? As I close this debate. Is the way that I live and experience my life in alignment with the reality that God doesn't exist in? Am I living life as if there's ultimately no purpose or meaning? Am I living life with intentionality, or as if everything in life is ultimately random, by chance, or by luck? Do I really live life like I'm just a piece of matter or chemical reactions or a nervous system, as my opponent asserted tonight? Or do I live like I have self-awareness, a unique personality, and a mind? Lastly, when I think about what I value most in life, like love, relationships, honesty, integrity, empathy, kindness, and the such, do I really think it's rational to think that all of these things are nothing more than the byproduct of a central nervous system or random mutations over billions of years? When I think about the real me, who am I? Do I think, oh, I'm just a nervous system. I'm just a bunch of chemicals. If you answered no to any of these questions, and you claim that God doesn't exist, your conclusion is irrational. My opponent did not prove that atheism is rational tonight. If you're going to be intellectually honest, you need to conclude that I have won tonight's debate. Thank you and all glory to Jesus Christ, the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings. God bless you, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Okay. And that would be the ending of your closing statement with 28 seconds left on the clock. Man, this event started off rough, but it's going good, and I'm grateful for this debate. Everyone, let's give a round of applause for Daniel, Green, and Jason. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys being here. Given that, we're now going to go into about 20 minutes of audience comments, critiques, or questions. I'll start bringing those people up. I do need a mod to start the poll so we can get an audience vote on who won. I can't do it. I try to, but I can't. And also, if anyone can like screenshot it and send it to me, I would like to keep it for my records, like whatever the result of that poll is. But thank you, mods, for bringing up the people to speak. Who wants to go first?
I'd love to. Great
Go
performance by both of you. I think you both did a great job. But this is a question for Daniel on his nervous system. At one point in the debate, you said it's a non-rationalistic determined cause is your nervous system. And then I heard at some point that your mind, a rational mind, can change a non-rationalistic determined nervous system. I would just see that as a somewhat of a, if not contradiction, a vicious circle, right? But I would just like to see your input on that.
Yeah, sure. No, I don't think that that's what I said. Before getting into that, I hope you don't mind if I just thank everyone so much for the gifts. This is unbelievable. I can hardly believe that, to be honest. Rest assured that all goes towards this, getting another day worth of live streaming up and running. Thank you so much, everyone. It means a ton. Yeah, it's my belief that we're not born rational. That's not how the human brain has evolved. It's not.
It's not
what we inherit when we're born. Rationality is learned, and depending on how much someone has learned about rationality, and how much someone has learned about cognitive bias, the shortcomings of the human brain's ability to think rationally, how much someone has learned about the psychological phenomena that impede their ability to think rationally. The more someone has learned about those things, the more rationally they think, right? So long as it's taught in a way, or they learn it in a way that it sticks and it's all coherent within itself. But I don't think that it doesn't make sense to say that, a mind can become more rational over time the more that it learns about critical thinking and how things appear to work around us.
I mean, with all due respect, Daniel, you didn't answer the question, right? If your nervous system is a non-rationalistic, determined process, but then you say at some point the mind that is rational can change this from a non-rationalistic determined process to a rational process that is indeterminate.
No, I think that the mind changes in accordance with what it experiences. We reach a tipping point, right? At some point, we might reach a tipping point at which we begin to value critical thinking more than we used to. And so then we might consciously seek more education, more information about how to think even more rationally than we already have come to. Right?
Also, really quick, let me just hop in really quick. Sorry to interrupt. For the audience, there's a blue clipboard on the left side of your screen. That's where the poll is. Just tap on that and you can submit your vote. I'm sorry about that, Daniel. Go ahead.
No worries. Like, for example, when I used to believe in Santa Claus, right, I don't think that, I could really help that. I hadn't been exposed to enough information to make what I now believe is a more rational decision. So I couldn't help that I continued believing that Santa was real. But
this
once
is
I
the
realized
critique,
that,
Daniel.
there was certain...
Your rational mind... if your rational mind, because you're not answering the question, to be completely fair, and I'm sorry for interrupting.
I think I am, but
we do kind of have to move on due to like shortness of time.
Thank you, Coco.
But sorry about that. But
Well,
maybe
that's
like
not-
later
okay.
after the debate, you can come back and we can probably get that done. Who wants to go next?
Jason, I have a couple questions for the things you said. One of the very first sorry, but one of the first things that you said in the very beginning was what it entailed to have like some disbelief in a proposition that might be logically possible. And you claim that what is logically possible is logically necessary. And I really need to like some expounding on that, right? Because that just does not follow from any like formal system. So I'm wondering exactly how you can expound on that.
I hope your fucking grandma makes fucked up salchicha.
Wait, what's going on? We
I'm
gotta keep
asking
it,
you.
we gotta
Did
keep
you
it
go?
appropriate.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I realize you guys can hear me.
I think
was
Solo was
yeah.
unmuted.
Yeah, Solo was unmuted. Sorry, but yeah, Jason, did you hear the question I made?
So I didn't really understand the question. Are you asking me where did I get this concept that if something is not
No, so like okay,
possible,
so
that it's logically necessary?
yeah, no, not even that. It's just a commitment to say that you can't disbelieve or have certainty of a disbelief of something that can be logically possible, right? The logical necessary thing, I'll just take that as a blunder, because if I don't truly think that you think that everything that's logically possible is logically necessary, right?
I mean, this isn't my my idea. I didn't come up with the philosophy, but this is what philosophy. I mean, anybody can do the search for it. You can look this up in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Any philosophical academic work will tell you that if something isn't logically impossible, that it's logically necessary. But
Yeah. So could you cite me?
In answer to your question, what I'm asserting is I didn't say that you can deny whatever you want to. You can deny the law of identity if you want to.
No, Jason, listen. That's not the question I was asking. I'm asking you if you make the commitment to say that you cannot hold a disbelief or have a certainty in the disbelief of something that is logically possible. Is that what you're saying?
I said if something isn't logically impossible, then you can't have certainty that it is not that it doesn't exist.
Okay, so you agree that it would so you and that's your stipulation for what is an irrational disbelief, right?
No, that's not the only stipulation. By the definition of what is rational, means
Your destination is on the left.
rational means it would be based on it would be based on logic. It would be irrational. It would be counterintuitive, contradictory to say, well, yeah, even though it's logically possible, I know that it can't exist or doesn't.
Well, okay, so that you agree to that. So your commitment makes you hold that you cannot hold a disbelief on essentially any unfalsifiable claim. You commit to that?
Wait, restate your question again.
But we do have to keep the question short. Let's keep
Okay,
going.
that's just the last thing I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna say the statement out here. With that stipulation and that commitment you're making, you would call any disbelief of an unfalsifiable claim irrational. And I don't know how you get away with that if you hold to that stipulation. But that's all I'm trying to say. So yeah.
Okay, we can go to the next person. The poll ended. Can someone take a screenshot of that and like Discord it to me for my records, or post it in like any Discord group chat? I'm gonna need that. But thank you. Next question.
I have a question for Daniel, if I may.
Go for it.
Provided you a definition for rationale, which was anything which raises the probability of the proposition being true. Would you agree that even if someone has a trivial reason for believing a proposition to be true, it is still reason at all?
I think that's the definition that Jason gave for evidence, not reason, to be clear. Is that
Yeah, thank you.
what you're talking
Thank you
about?
for clarifying.
My apologies. Is evidence the type of thing that provides reason for a belief?
Yes, yeah. I don't believe that all evidence is equal in nature. I don't think that, the faith-based belief, for example, of someone that someone might have in a miracle having occurred necessarily means that a miracle occurred. I think that that's a miracle of the gaps argument, so to speak. Right? Just because we feel that we have seen something happen doesn't mean that it did happen. right? Just because we feel that there is an argument that supports something being true, it might not actually be a sound argument. I'm much more interested in sound arguments than just any valid argument whatsoever. Someone might have ancient texts that people have been believing for thousands of years. That doesn't make the claims in the text true either. Not all evidence is equal, right? The evidence that I have had presented to me in support of any theistic deity specifically necessarily existing is not coherent. It doesn't convince me. I'm not compelled.
That's okay. I mean, my last question is, if it's not a good reason, it's still a reason, even if it is unsound to somebody like you or Jason. So my question is, must something to be rational, must it provide a good reason or just reason at all?
That's a great question. By my understanding of rationality, I would say that it in order for it to be an entirely rational belief, you would want it to be based on sound argumentation or coherent, or a coherent body of evidence. Anything less than that, oh, thank you so much. I've never had that one before. Anything less than that, I can understand someone forming a belief as a result of, but the varying degrees of certainty that we can have in our beliefs, I think, is the real question here.
Okay. Next question. Who do we got next?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Daniel. As a Dotist, I support you, and this is something I can get behind. That's why I made this profile picture here, if you can see it. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, good. No, I'm glad. I feel as though it's in your best interest, at least, to have put faith in it before you had reason to believe. But I'm glad that you see the dot.
Jason, can you deny the dot now? Would you be able to deny the dot?
Are you asking me if I deny the dot that I see on your hand? Is this serious? This is
a serious question.
What are we, like in middle school? I don't deny that I'm seeing a dot on your profile picture. No. What does that prove? How does that prove in any way? All these questions that you guys are asking do nothing to demonstrate the rationality of denying the existence of God. None of it. Daniel didn't do anything to prove that denying the existence of any and all gods is rational. Absolutely not. That's the question here that we were debating. But anyway.
Under your definition of what atheism is.
Well, I gave you a scholastic. I gave you the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. This is not a theologian definition. This is even what most scholars define atheism as.
That's fine. And I gave you a morphological breakdown of what the word atheism
we can continue the debate. That's fine. We can continue the debate another day. Any other questions? Because I do want to go spend some time with my family. Did anyone else have any questions for me?
We are a bit out of time, but I don't see Cease to Know and Russell yet, so we can do a couple more questions until they arrive.
They're both in the comments, by the way. I think Eric was next.
Okay, Eric, you can go next, and then Cease to Know, Russell, request to come up as soon as possible so we can get that next debate going.
Yeah, so I want to point out, so when we usually do a debate, it is...
All right.
Oh, what happened? Wait. Why are we dropping everybody?
Well, I think I know his point, maybe. He can come back up and give it, but... Jason, what is it called when two people are debating? Oh, go ahead, Eric. You're back.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so when two people normally debate, to prevent a definitional fallacy, which is by using a definition to say that what the people are saying isn't like true by just arguing on this, that you agree on a definition before usually you do the actual discussion. If it's the case that, Jason, you admitted that you knew Daniel was going to use a different definition for this, why would you then straw man his position that he's not even holding to, instead of actually agreeing on a definition before the debate to make it an actual good conversation instead of a straw man?
Yeah, I didn't know what he was going to do. I just assumed, because this is what most atheists do as a deflection, because they know that they can't give a rational justification for denying the existence of God. So they hide behind this whole idea, oh, atheism is just a lack of a belief in God.
But didn't you say on here that you knew that he was going to use a different definition, knowing that he was going to use a
No, I
different
did not say
definition?
that. I did not say that. What I said
okay,
was,
well, that's fine.
what I said was Daniel would not be able to give a rational justification for denying all the existence of any and all gods.
Okay, so can you, and then after that, can you give me the P and not P that it is into atheism? Because just because you say God doesn't exist, you have to give a P and not P why his position is non-justified. If you have to demonstrate,
I'm not here to debate you, Eric. If that's not a question. If you want to debate me, I'll be more than happy to debate you on this same topic.
What was your P and not P to justify the claim?
We were going, is atheism rational? I demonstrated. Yes. I gave you a scholarly definition of atheism, and I gave you a definition of rational. It is illogical to conclude or to assert with certainty that God doesn't exist when it is not logically impossible and you can't be certain of it. By the way, Daniel isn't certain of anything. He doesn't. Well, you said that multiple times, but
no,
yeah, you did. You even said it in the debate that you weren't certain that God doesn't exist. Daniel.
That's not me saying I'm not certain of anything, Jason.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
anyway,
I don't want to run the risk of starting up debate.
No worries.
2.0,
yeah,
but that's not.
Eric's ultimate question is, he's asking me what the P and not P is. For what? For the denial, for atheism? Like, I don't know. His question didn't make any sense to me.
Okay, but Russell, if you're in here, please request to come up so we can start the next debate. But in the meantime,
guys, I'm gonna hop off and go be with my family. Hey, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate you, man. We'll catch up. We'll talk again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Don't forget to honor all of the military, that men and women that have died in order to protect our freedoms and serve our great country, the United States of America. God bless America, and Jesus Christ is Lord.
Yeah, make sure you go look up the definition of the word deny.
Also, really quick, let's also recognize that Jason is a ex-military. What was it? Where did you serve, Jason?
Marine Corps. Hoorah, Semper Fi, do or die.
Thank you for your service. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
God bless everybody.
Wonderful. And
yeah, again,
thank you, everyone, as well.
Means.
Jason, hosts, audience, every one of you has just absolutely made my day. Thank you so much for being a part of the whole experience. Can't wait to see any of you some other time. All the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it, and I hope to collab with you soon and maybe do more debates. But okay, so we have Rasul and Cease to Know here. I do want to get all the judges on the panel and clear everybody else out. But we might have time after the debate to talk about anything or any comments, questions, concerns. So we'll do it there.